So real quick lesson here on phishing detection, because really the hardest part's over. We've talked about the threats. We've talked about setting up a profile. We're just going to talk specifically about the threat of phishing and of course what WebSafe does. So you guys have probably seen emails like this before that maybe you receive from your bank or something like that that tells you that there's some sort of an issue that you need to resolve right away, and you need to click on the link to go resolve it. And what typically happens if you might click on that link in an email like this? Yeah, it's going to probably take you to a site that looks very much like your page. So for the average observer, they won't think much of it. It would take a keen eye for anyone to recognize that maybe something's awry here. Can anybody tell what's awry?
0 instead of an O in the URL.
So if you look at the URL, you'll see that it's actually not Bank of America, it's Bank 0F America, and that 0 instead of an O is enough to make that a different domain name pointing to a different server.
And that box probably should be green.
So, say it again?
I'm thinking that box probably should be green.
Yeah.
The box should what?
Yeah, you can get phishing for anything now.
You want. Yeah. But you wouldn't have it in your browser.
Yeah. There's a free legit CA now.
Yeah, even Let's Encrypt.
Yeah.
Again, remember, they're getting smarter and smarter.
Yeah, it's crazy. They don't, there's like no review involved in getting a certificate.
So when our victims are victims of phishing, now malware doesn't have to do anything. When they put in the username and password here, they're basically just handing it right over to the hacker on their site, on their server. The next question is, how can we help educate our friends and family to maybe recognize these emails and identify that they're not a valid email? Aside from the fact that banks don't usually send emails like this anymore, that in itself is suspect. But how can I maybe, without clicking on that link, how might I be able to identify if this is valid or not? I'm sorry? Look at the sender. Although I can't see the sender from here, but I could if I did a reply, which is my next screenshot. What about if I just put my mouse over it? Don't click on it. Put your mouse over it. Look down here to see where it's going to take you. That looks a little strange. Something about it is typically strange looking. And then, as I said, as you said, you could also reply, but don't actually send the reply, but then you can actually see who you're about to send this to, and that might look suspect as well. And last case, the last method you might use is just call your organization and say, hey, I got this email. Should I have? And they'll probably say no. So I've got some more statistics that these are all fairly current, 2018. Average cost of a phishing attack. Average cost of a phishing attack, $1.6 million. The rise in phishing attacks, 65%. That's pretty good. Good for us, anyway. Not good for the world. Number of businesses that reported being a phishing victim, 3 out of 4. This is the one I was thinking of earlier. The percent of phishing emails that get opened, that means they're just looking at it, and then the percent of users that actually click on the link, 12%, and the number of new phishing sites created every month. So again, huge threat here. Huge hurdle to get it over. And where it hurts is the Bank of America's, because that's who the hackers target, those kind of sites, to get phishing sites set up for them. So let's talk about how this works. The first thing, the hacker has to create a site that looks like the legitimate site. Well, web development, this must take hours, weeks, months. No, unfortunately. Fortunately for them, unfortunately for us, all they have to do is access the real site, right-click and save it, do a save as, and then place that saved copy on their phishing site, which again could be a hijacked, legitimate web server. Then they need to take this IP address and register that fake domain name with the domain name system. And then the last part is they just need to get their email, to get those emails out. Send the emails out to thousands and thousands of people and hope that some people are Bank of America users and actually click on the link. Once they do, then the user goes right to the bank, the phishing site supplies their credentials that go right to the hacker. So that's how phishing works. Pretty simple. Some examples, these were real examples I just got recently. So these are all examples from 2017. So we got some from Netflix, from the U.S. District Court. Can you imagine? Then you got UPS. Go to your tracking number. It looks very benign. Then you got PayPal. Something's wrong with your PayPal account. I've got to check that out. But imagine if you got an email from our United States Internal Revenue Service, our tax IRS, saying that there's a problem with your tax return. You better check into this right away. Again, the temptation to click on these links is really, really, really tough for our poor users.
Backing up, there's some tells on there that they say is bad grammar.
Bad grammar, yes. I agree.
All right reserved.
Yeah. That is funny. So here's some of the benefits with our phishing detection with WebSafe. First, the key to recognizing phishing is as soon as a hacker saves a copy of my site and places it over there, then the first time anybody accesses that new fake site will get an alert. And more often than not, who do you think is the first person to access that fake site? The hacker. Because they want to check it out, they want to test it out, make sure it displays in the browser properly. So not only are we going to get an alert about that, but we're going to find out who the hacker is and all of that. That's kind of interesting. We can get visibility of who the phishing victim was, what fake domain name was being used, and what real page was copied. Now, what if we looked at all that JavaScript code and the hacker was smart enough to say, that code looks suspicious and maybe I'll remove it from my copied page? Well, we also have a backup protection for that. We also, one of the tactics that is used quite often, so let's say I've got my phishing site here. We got the legitimate banking website here. And all I care about is the web page. There's 5 or 6 images on the web page. And not only as a hacker, not only do I want to put those images on my phishing site, but I want to make sure those images are updated as often as these images are updated on the real site. So instead of putting the valid images here, I'm actually going to reference all the images on my fake site. I'm going to reference the images from the real web server so that I will actually display the most current images, and we can detect that as well. We can detect when that happens. We also offer the takedown services. So our SOC works with the domain name system, and we have legal authority in some manner to identify and show that these are phishing host names, and it's a process they go through. What I like to say about our phishing, without giving away all the secrets, because again, I can't do that, I'd have to kill you all. And then they'd probably come and kill me. And I'm not joking, these people in Tel Aviv are serious, all right? But what I like to say is our phishing detection you know, the protection against modifications by a hacker, we have a backup for that. Then if they try to eliminate more stuff, we have a backup for that. And then we have a backup for the backup. And the one thing we do that I can share with you, which is the backup to the backup to the backup, is our SOC also has algorithm checkings. They monitor all the new DNS names, all the new host names that are registered every day, which are thousands and thousands. And they have some sort of, you know, filtering, monitoring, so that they can look at our customer, bankofamerica.com, and they can see any new DNS names that have some sort of similarity. So they can be a jump ahead of potential phishing sites. Some really cool stuff. So we've already got our profile set up. If we didn't, you already saw now how to create a profile. But let's say we already have the profile set up and I'm ready to add phishing detection as well. It's as simple as going back to the URL in question, selecting that, and then opening up our phishing detection, enabling it here, and once again, by default, most of the, or pretty much all the features we want are already enabled when we do that. Again, no extraneous coding and figuring out, you know, this and learn, none of that. Just one checkbox, boom, done. I can walk away. Some more features down here. What I like to say is don't even bother yourself trying to figure out what all these are unless you're really curious. But they're part of the backup of the backup of the backup and so forth. Let's see how this works, and then you can try it. So again, our banking site that they want to target is actually a WebSafe customer banking site. So we have our virtual server, we have our WebSafe profile. The hacker now wants to get a copy of our website. So they're going to access the web page just like anybody else. When the response comes, the WebSafe profile is going to add that JavaScript to the response and then send it to the user, which in this case is the hacker. So they're going to do the same thing. They're going to right-click and do a save as, but unbeknownst to them, what they're saving, in addition to all the code for our web page, in addition, they're also saving our JavaScript component. And all of that gets saved onto the phishing site, including the JavaScript component. And when that is configured for phishing detection, then again, it's got a variety of things it's looking for, but one of the key things it's looking for is whenever this is accessed by somebody, and it's probably going to be accessed by this guy first, then it's going to initiate an alert from the hacker's computer to our security operations center. And again, to them, it doesn't look anything different than a call for an image file or a CSS file. It doesn't look like anything's happened on his end or her end. I shouldn't be sexist. Hackers could be females. And then we can take that site down. There we go again, another one. Let's watch that again. I've put a lot of time into that. We're going to take that site down. Boom, come on. It's good stuff.
How long did you spend on that?
Well, the tricky thing about that was creating this kind of a motion was not,
Not a rotate, but a pivot.
and they don't have that. What I actually had to do was I took the bat image and then I had to create a rectangle image extending out, turn it into one object, and then just do a rotate. And I got that tip online. So I was like, there's got to be a way to do this. All right, so next exercise. You are now going to create a phishing site from our banking page. And here's what you're going to do. I want to make sure this gets a little confusing. So we have our LAMP server. Now the LAMP server, in reality, our LAMP server is where our legitimate banking site is, okay? There's no doubt about it. That's where our banking site is. But we have another IP address here, and we're going to pretend this other IP address is a different web server. So you're going to connect into the LAMP server, and you're going to place the copy of the site into that other site on the LAMP server and access it as a phishing site. And then we'll add some detection, and hopefully see some alerts and do some backup and remove. You're also going to remove some JavaScript, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's hard to remove the JavaScript because it's really long. I want you to see how hard it is for the hacker to remove the JavaScript. So there's a point, there's a method to my madness. All right, so we got another 40 minutes. We're going to do one last lesson after this, so let's get into it. I know, like I said, it's going to be kind of a long day, but it's such good information. So let me know if you have any questions on phishing.